silly things still in my way.
A podium?
Maybe I should just set this on the podium. Is anybody going to use the podium? Can I set the camera on the podium?
Yeah.
Still the way? Put it in front of Aaron. Or better, I can put it in front of Aaron. Did you put it up on there? I did, but I.
Just have to just try and hold this.
Well, I'll set it in front of her. Then you guys don't have to worry. You can't talk, but you don't have to worry about being on camera.
Yes. Rhonda, your job is to hold that microphone. Anybody get the?
I'll get him say, what did you say? I need a longer cord.
She's
Gonna bust up my stuff.
Can it go here? Can it go? No, that's it. Can't. Well, this thing should be able to disconnect.
Well, I'm sorry.
That's their interview.
I'm sorry.
now that the podium's in the way.
I know, we'll move it back this way now.
Let's just get rid of the podium.
Exactly. That's what I said. Nobody uses that.
Just put it to the side.
Kind of just blocks my view.
See if they know this. I think we should even take it.
Not seeing that.
Oh, sweet.
That's a great idea. I think that might be considered open. Those little nifty sticks. Why would that be a shiv then, right?
So that would
In a jail? That'd be like a shiv?
Well, yeah, I think jail.
What?
Although careful.
Huh?
For years.
They're blocking the extension.
We have to do it for years. Oh, really?
Yeah.
It was a great car.
Yes. Liz,
They want to be in the video, right?
well, you gave to me the email. I wanted to read that tonight. I forgot. I completely to grab it. I printed it out.
I might have to go back up high. The volume wasn't great, but I just like to get the whole room.
I mean, I thought all this stuff.
So that's this year. This bottom row is this year. I didn't include very minimal based on the way Brian has IL structured now. What I did was the high school daily numbers. I might have just done middle school numbers, middle school visits, and high school visits. That's what the majority of them had. Was 1913 for the first semester. That's 21 daily average. And if you double that, it's 38.6. So that would be the projected. Sure. Middle school class visit is 3 at 2.
I have one viewer. You must be going.
Your high school class visit is for the first semester. What's his name? So that'd be 2 at 2. IT. And I don't know. Is he taping this?
That's his camera.
That's his. Did you turn on? Is he turning on? He asked me to make sure that you know. I think that meant from now on.
It's on.
Within the past.
No, it's on pause. So.
Well, everything there has increased. The middle school numbers have doubled. Sarah, why don't you sit up here?
Sure, Mrs. Weber's. And then I have the keyboard. So then it would be shared. I need a better hours.
How you're doing
The coverage.
I put it back right there.
It's hard with the sound, but.
Right, yeah, which we are fine with that.
Sorry.
That much? Extra.
Oh, do
We said we could bring those tonight. Rhonda did. She made it sound. What I do? The face on the stick. How do you eat?
Oh, that's right. I thought you were do the camera.
I am putting the camera. He actually had messaged me last week. Ask Gary. Yeah, asking me if I could. Good. Asking me if I would push his camera for him. So.
Alright, so I can see this one too.
Are you speaking to us?
I know, I saw it.
Yeah, that's.
Yeah, a little bit. Right here, I'm sorry. All right. Yeah, I just wanted to make sure. I started now. I should have
Oh, I'm sorry.
Should we do this? I don't know much. I'm just gonna. Yeah. I'm probably. It's public.
Standing on the silence. Thank you. And
Mr. Barlow? Mr. Card? Mrs. Moscato? Mr. Hatter? Mr. LaFever? Mr. Matthews?
here.
Mrs. Mikesell? Mrs. Van Meter? Mr. Wickham?
Okay, want to let everybody know we had an executive session, a very short one, some of the personnel issues a few minutes ago. We have a motion to approve the minutes that were revised from February 9th and the minutes from February 23rd. Myself. Okay, we have a second. Bruce? Go ahead and do a roll call.
Mr. Barlow?
Here.
Mr. Carr?
Yes.
Mrs. Moscato?
Yes.
Mr. Wickham?
Yes.
Mrs. Van Meter? Mrs. Mikesell?
Yes.
Mr. Matthews,
Yes?
Mr. LaFever,
Yes.
Mr. Hatter.
Yes. Okay, we don't have any presentations tonight?
No.
No, okay, then we're on to the student representative reports.
All right, so for the elementary school, kindergarten registration is coming up soon. So if your kids need to be in kindergarten, you can sign them up now. For middle,
Come on, standing up at the.
You probably have to talk louder too.
for middle school, the Spirit Week is coming up soon, March 23rd through the 27th. Monday's Pajama Day, Tuesday is Sports Day, Wednesday is Western Day, Thursday is Hero Day. Also, golf, track, and
Forward.
And then for the high school, March 20th is going to be our school musical at 6:30 p.m. along with Saturday, 21st at 2 and 6:30 p.m. And then most of the spring sports actually practice outside today, so we were all pretty happy about that.
That's
So we're
good.
taking advantage of it. And then our charity bowl got moved because we didn't have school Friday, so we couldn't participate in the charity bowl. So that's going to be announced at a later date. Sure, exactly. And that's it. So,
Great, thank you, Mr. Ford.
Is the musical Annie?
yes.
Now we have a new line item on the agenda. We want to thank Ms. Dean, who's the business manager's report. It's going to be the second meeting of every month. Take it away, Ms. Dean.
Trying to keep good news tonight. The state auditors are here and we're providing the requested material and completing the questionnaires. And I would have to say it's pretty basic and standard and based on the Auditor General's new agenda, so nothing real alarming. I am working on the budget. We did receive some preliminary numbers as a result of the governor's budget. I don't know if anybody had an opportunity to look at them, but they're extremely aggressive and I think very unrealistic at this point. It would be fabulous if they would turn into reality, but I certainly think there's a long way to go before that happens. I just hope it doesn't stall the overall budget date. And we will be attending a budget seminar on March 20th, so I hope maybe we have something more realistic to report after that relative to revenues. We do have Mrs. Pleva in training in the business office for transportation and taxes, and she's doing very well. We're doing some preliminary work on the bond restructuring, and we should have a decent report on that in April, as soon as we're ready to pull the trigger on that. And so far, the interest rates, there's no reason to think it'd be any different from what we projected earlier. Transportation, you have an item on the agenda tonight to change to shorten the drive for some children. And we ran the numbers on that, and that's really only gonna be a cost change of about $76 because you're significantly decreasing what a bus does and adding it to a van. So the way the calculation is crunched and the age of the van and so on, it's really almost no cost to the district whatsoever. So that's good news because we can provide that for those kids and still maintain our budget numbers. We do have our numbers for our healthcare for next year relative to the staff, and there is no change in the premium. If I'm not mistaken, this is the third year in a row that I've been able to say that. It's not going to happen next year, but I'm very glad that it happened this year because it's coming at a good time for us. And on that note, I think somebody on the board had some questions about Obamacare and how that might affect us and having to offer health care to folks that heretofore we did not consider full-time, but the federal government now does. And we've run the numbers on that. Our look-back period was November of 13 to October of 14. We have to start reporting in January of 16. And we have no eligible or even marginally eligible part-time folks. You're allowed to calculate all the days in the school year as long as the break is not larger than 1 month. So you can count Christmas vacation and the days that kids aren't in school. And when you do that calculation with the 19 part-time, what we call part-time folks, none of those would even be marginally eligible or put us in a position where we might have to offer them something or pay a tax on their behalf. So that was somewhat good news for us as well.
And the final announce number is, I think, exactly what we told you at a prior meeting. It's $100,992 to pay off the final numbers. And their council is going to get back to me, but my recommendation is just going to be sometime before June 30th of this year to pay the whole amount. Just write them a check, pay it. We've put a great deal of money in the budget over the last couple of years to cover it, so I would just like to write them one check, if that's okay. Well, I know we were talking about maybe doing some this year and some next year. My suggestion would just be by June 30th, just write the check. And it's basically coming from the fund balance.
Anything else?
Not at this time.
Well, thank you. That was a very informative. All right, we're going to go on to the building celebrations. Start with Mr. McDowell.
Good evening. One of the things in the high school that we like to talk to students about is student engagement, meaning that students be engaged in the high school other than just coming to the school and being involved in classroom activities. So things like baseball numbers and track numbers being up this spring, to me that's a celebration because that means students are engaged in things that they're doing outside the classroom. Love seeing students involved in those things. Another celebration, we had a very successful FFA week 2 weeks ago. We actually were able to get all in. I mean, all the snow things that happened, and we had an FFA did a great job for the students and the staff to participate in. One other thing that started last week and is continuing this week. One of the things in the high school, besides student engagement, that we try to encourage students to be involved in is serving others or service. So this year, the high school has picked a charity that we are raising funds for all school year. Usually in the winter about this time, we have the charity ball, but along with that is a charity pep rally and other things that we do to concentrate on that. That organization is the Pepper.org organization. Send animals to people in other countries that need them, and it can basically change their life. We're culminating that in the Friday of this week, and if they raise X amount of dollars, the students will get to see me kiss a pig. Good times for Mr. McDowell. And then finally, here, FedFest works with a lot of SAT prep courses are paid for. We get to go on the college trip. But another thing they do is they work with rural school districts and give grants to students to go to college. Last year, our school district had 3 winners. They got grants, and of course, they haven't necessarily picked their college yet this year. This year, we just found out that we had 5 semifinalists. So again, that is great news that our students continue to be in the running for money to support them in their endeavors after the high school. So,
Great. Great job. Mrs. Weber.
This evening, I'd like to share with you the increased attendance or use of our library. And our librarian is here, so if I make any errors here, Mrs. Mickley, if you please correct me. The first semester, the middle school has had 1,913 individual visits to the library, which is about 21 daily. So for the year, that's 3,826 visits. As far as classes visiting the library, 302 middle school classes have visited the library, with about 604 to double it the second semester. And in the high school, 101 classes have visited, so it's a projected 202 classes. So as you can see, the students and the teachers are using the resources and the technology available in the library. And the second thing that I would like to celebrate tonight, it's not every day that we get a letter from a legal department from the NFL Players Association. But we did receive a letter on February 5th after a gentleman had a conversation with Mrs. Hofacker, the middle school secretary. I'm going to read you his letter. Dear Mrs. Hofacker, I hope this note finds you well. As I mentioned on the phone earlier today, my roommate and I had the pleasure of meeting and riding the ski lift this weekend with 2 of your 6th graders, Alex and Tyler. Both were extremely well-spoken and respectful. We were very impressed with their positive attitudes and passion for skiing. Tyler mentioned that he's a big fan of football parties, and I wanted to pass these along as a notion of gratitude for their respectfulness and helpfulness. Your staff and their parents should be very proud. And I was very proud of them, and they had a huge educating hours of the school day, but the way they act when they're in the community. And I think that this letter is really indicative of that.
I'm going to stand because I want to see everybody. A few things that are happening at the elementary school, very exciting. I have Mrs. Mays here, who is the chairperson of our talent show, which is being held on May 18th at 6:30 p.m. Oh, did I say May? Sorry, March. That's an M word. March 18th. It's a Wednesday evening, and it's at 6:30, and everyone is invited. We have students who are singing and dancing. We have musicians playing trumpets, the ukulele, a violin. We have some gymnasts. We have all kinds of routines. So we want to very enjoyable. Please. You're registration 19th, and your student must attend to register. We're also doing a kindergarten screening at that time. So please call the elementary school office to schedule an appointment. Our family literacy night is coming up on March 26th, and that's a wonderful evening that our students, parents, and PTO celebrate literacy. And that also starts at 6:30. So if you would like to participate, or if there are any board members who would like to be guest readers, we are looking for some guest readers for our students that evening. Last time I was here, I celebrated several students in the art department. Tonight, I want to share with you a celebration of some classroom teachers. At the end of every school year, in the month of May and June, the Shippensburg University School Study Council, which we are a member of, asks each school district that participates to nominate 2 teachers that the school district administrators feel are outstanding and exemplary in their areas. This past June, back in June of 2014, 2 teachers from the district that were nominated and then celebrated with a wonderful luncheon at Shippensburg University. And those 2 teachers were Kara McCausland and Jennifer Sobel. So I just wanted to let you know that they were our recommendations and they were recognized along with 28 other school districts. Thank you.
All right, we're going to go ahead on to public comment, and first one who wishes to address the board, Sarah Laird.
So I am excited about the prospect of the ban. However, I do have a few questions and concerns about that. Starting with, are the children going to be in booster seats? Are there going to be booster seats provided? Because being in a van versus a bus, I think that would be required, and it'd be required to be seatbelted. Another question I have a concern about how they will be picked up. Currently, the bus, we live back in dirt lane and then down a dirt driveway, and I know that some of the other families do too. And so the bus picks up at the end of our lane, which is fine, and we have no problem with that, but we're kind of at a rise, and a bus is a lot more visible than a van. A bus also has the stop sign and the safety features for picking children up. I will tell you there's no way a van is going to get back in my dirt lane. I've been stuck. My neighbor had to pull me out Saturday morning. My husband left and went ahead of me, and I got stuck, and the neighbor had to get his truck and come get a tow rope and pull me out. So I have a concern about that. Yes, we're coming out of winter, but that is a concern. As to how the safety, how we'll do that pickup and drop off situation for getting kids into a booster seat and belted safely. I also have a concern, and my question is this a long-term solution, or is this going to be a solution just to the end of this year? And then my other question is about bus 11, because this does nothing to alleviate the problems on bus 11. And in our current situation, my kids generally ride from the house in the morning, but frequently are on bus 11 to daycare in the afternoon. However, one day last week, when there was a delay, I had to take them to daycare in the morning. So they actually were at bus 11 to school. And Aaron came home and told me that the bus had to stop suddenly. I still haven't gotten the resolved exactly how. I think the bus driver did fine, but she's complained over and over again that there's 3 children per seat. And she said that that she was by the window and she wound up on top of the other 2 children who spilled out into the aisle. And I had posed the question, and I did hear from a couple of parents that the children on the one side of the bus, as a result of the quick stopping, wound up thrown out. Well, I think that's a lot more likely to happen when you have 3 kids per seat. So again, thank you. I appreciate that we're getting this van situation, but there are some safety concerns I have, and it still doesn't fix the bus 11 issue, which is also just as bad, I think. That's all I'm gonna say.
We'll talk about it when we get through everybody in public comment.
Okay.
Ian Straight. I wanted to say a couple comments about the source for teachers that we talked about last week. I think it sounds like a great idea. You know, the whole problem of trying to fix is the fill percentage that we have. My daughter came home today and there were 5 different teachers in her class because we couldn't fill the sub. So whatever we can do to raise that fill rate, I'm all for it. Some of the other things that about the source for teachers making it the technological advances allowing teachers and subs to mark themselves out online, as well as the management features that it saves the district. In the morning, somebody calling substitutes, the payroll, everything. It sounds great, but it comes at a cost, at a premium. And we also was talked about last week that we would need to raise our sub rate to be competitive amongst the other school districts in this pool of subs that we're going to pull from. So I guess my concern is, are we jumping the gun into this? Could it be, I just want to make sure that the homework is done beforehand, that, you know, it's just raising that handles the sub management duties in the morning, an aide or a part-time person, and that would be less than the cost of subscribing to Source for Teachers and the sub rate. You know, save us money. I know it was early on and it was just brought up last week, but those are some of the things that came into my mind. I want to make sure that all avenues were discussed before we went to it. I understand it's not outsourcing substitutes. It's essentially the same stuff that we have now. It's just the management and the maintenance of them. That fill rate is important. Thank you, Mr. Strahler. Mayor Stanley.
Yeah, thank you. Well, let's see. First of all, I wanted to tell all of you what's going on with ALS, BLS, advanced life support versus basic life support. We in the Fairfield Fire Company provide basic. Wellspan provides ALS, advanced life support for the area. They're going away on 30 June. So we're examining how we're going to come up with ALS in this area. We're working on 3 solutions. We haven't decided yet which one is going to be, so I can't talk to it. But after 30 June, we are going to provide the ALS in this area. The fire company today, you probably don't know about this, but there is a plan, it's like the bus plan, where if you pay $40 a year for fire company, they give you a basic life support system within 75 miles to your local hospital. And that's the best deal you're ever going to find. Now, I think if we go to ALS, it's probably going to go to about $70. The ALS is a totally different requirement. Lonnie knows about this, of course, but occasionally we meet over there in the helicopter pad. They had a recent accident over at Sea Liberty where there was an incident between a woman and a young boy. But the woman had a broken wrist and a severe head injury. They brought a helicopter in to take her out, and they took the young boy over to York Hospital via our BLS system. They both arrived at the same time, and then the woman went right into surgery. So, okay, so we work closely. So we work closely, of course, with Sea Liberty and all that. But the Fairfield Fire Company is going to provide ALS. We hope that eventually. So that's important. Let's see. Marcy called me about robotics. I guess you got a robotics kit coming in soon. And the first story I heard was a drone. And I said, well, this is going to be challenging. I didn't say trying to be a drone. I said, well, so I guess what I'm asking is trying to figure out how to get some cash. But if we have anybody else who are, quote, experts in drone construction,
We're not making drones.
we need some experts.
I go drone.
So it's science, public, So we'll work with them. Call me when you're ready. Get any more volunteers. Let me know.
I got the kid today.
Okay. Well, we'll try, we got the hint today. All right, well, call me, we'll try to figure out what we're doing. Lonnie might be an expert in that area too. So.
Really expert.
He was out in the room.
I had the opportunity to meet with Karen. I had the opportunity to meet with Karen and Chuck in school security, which is a real concern of mine. I would like to have the opportunity to meet with all 9 of you sometime. And then finally, I think still need civics training. Okay, I can come in. Whichever question. Thanks for that. We'll train all the folks, and I mean, I had this stuff 60 years ago, so I went online to keep up. Federal government first, and then we do state government, and then we do local government. First, the folks who've been around here can understand local government. So, if you all want to sit in, it's fine. And I drag out Ron Harris and Bob Jackson.
That's great. Thanks, Bob. All right, Sean Jones, please.
All right. First of all, I'd like to congratulate PTO.
Mr. Jones, you don't have to stay up there.
I'm okay. I got that. I would congratulate PTO. $10,655. I honestly expected about half of that. I'm very happy to see that number. What I'd like to challenge the school board to do is to find the money to help supplement better playgrounds. We shouldn't talk about we need safer playgrounds, we need road sticks, we need this, we need that. And then the meetings somehow, like especially the last meeting, I saw it on video, delved into one of the board members complaining about legal fees. Well, let's do our job, and then we won't have to worry about legal fees and where we're going to find money. Let's find money. Let's do our job and find money. Because it's great that the community came together. This community is fantastic at coming together. What I want is this board to come together with the rest of the community, represent the community, and come together. I saw something else on Facebook today that absolutely infuriates me. And I think everybody in this room knows what I'm talking about. There were posting some private emails being used to discuss school board business. You folks are not the Secretary of State up here. We need this stuff being public because then that's what generates legal fees, folks, when you don't follow the rules. So let's represent the community and do what the community is already doing. Step up, do your job, do a problem.
Hard to follow that. Pretty much Sarah said everything I want to say. But I wanted to talk about the band. And I read about it on the agenda, about the band and place the bus. And I think it's a great thing. I did have a couple of questions about it. I addressed most of them. But there was one other one. She did mention, is this a temporary solution? And I was wondering that too. So when the next school year starts, what would happen? Would it be band again? Are we going to get an additional bus up there, or how is that going to work? And also, I know there was talk about the 5th and 6th grade going on the elementary school level. And if that's the case, then the band thing isn't going to work at all. Right? I mean, because the graders are into school, 2 grades onto the buses, exactly. The whole band thing probably may not work. So that's something else that I think needs to be looked into.
Okay, and Jesse has something.
Obviously, my wife touched on most of our concerns with her daughter in the bus, and Paul and Sarah as well. I come back on a problem most of my life producing high-end events, the Olympics, Fashion Week, Super Bowl, and I've done a lot of efficiency consulting, things Sitting here last week was my first meeting, and I have more questions and more questions, more questions, more I think about it. So I'm not necessarily here for a concern, but maybe to enlighten some people to think maybe a little differently, or maybe think about things they wouldn't normally have thought of. For example, the transportation situation. I've run into it many times. I've shut down tons of streets in New York City, and permits to shut them down. Downtown Manhattan. I've fought with unions on it. I've fought with everybody, and we found a way to make it work. The large one that I think would pertain to this situation with the transportation would be the 2009 Solheim Cup in Illinois. The very first day, they had a computer program. They had hundreds of thousands of vehicles coming in to watch the LPGA event. So the first day, there was 6-7 hour long waits for people to get in. Everybody was extremely mad. Everybody was at the end of their wait. So how they fixed it, we sat down, we looked at the paper that the computer said. There's 3 entrances. We moved it to 2, and we reversed the road, reversed the direction of something coming in. The next day, there was the longest wait was 20 minutes. It was 6 hours, and we did this overnight. So just because it seems like all these kids have to ride forever on the bus, all these kids have to, let's think outside the box a little bit. We don't have to do what a computer tells us, because the computer doesn't know about potholes, doesn't know about gravel on the road, doesn't know about all these things that we do. And no one person in here does either. I know the way to my house, that's about it. Somebody else might know the way to their house. So we need to work together on trying to figure out the
20
best
seconds,
way.
sir.
I don't know who to go towards. Sorry.
20 seconds.
Oh. So I think we need to think outside the box on a lot of this stuff, and not necessarily just go with on paper and what people are telling us to do. And as far as the playground too, I think we look elsewhere. For what they're getting, I do manufacture. It seems like we're not getting that amount of money for what comes into it, what actually the pictures. It doesn't look like $80,000 by any means. But
I had 2 things I was bringing to the meeting, and maybe Mr. McDowell, but one of them is I just came from a Safe and Sane meeting, which is for graduating seniors, the party that parents and community members get together. They can have fun event, something, so 30 years too. Or some other inappropriate things. So one of the things that they wanted to know was they were informed that they can't announce certain things or certain events or certain fundraisers over the announcements. And so I wasn't sure, and since I'm here, I thought I would certainly bring that up. I don't know if there's a rule because it's not a school-sponsored event, even though it benefits students in students. So certainly they would like the opportunity to kind of advertise some of their events. The other thing is we need to know when graduation is. I understand that there's snow days and other things, but we have money on deposit for certain venues that we might lose if we don't know that. And I would hope by now that we're pretty much out of the snow days scare. And I guess I need to know when the school board is going to be figuring that out, because I've been charged with coming back with that information. So, and then lastly, because I seem to have time, because Mrs. Weber hasn't told me to stop talking yet, I'm almost ahead. I just have to express how disheartened I was at the last meeting with Mr. Lefever's comments and conduct. It shows that some people on the board are more concerned with being divisive and being condescending and chastising people for voicing concerns than they are with getting the work done, as other people here commented on. So to make a motion that you know that you're gonna withdraw solely for the purpose of inciting or inflaming the group seems pointless. We aren't here to be chastised. We are allowed to voice concerns. I think that the people who filed this suit and other people who come here and voice concerns are doing it in good faith. And so we are looking to you for answers and for transparency. When you don't have that, you are left with nothing else than people getting up and voicing concerns or filing lawsuits or asking for right to know requests or whatever it is. So stop that. You're making a mockery of this board. So I'm asking to please stop that and come together and recognize that there's good people in this room who are working very hard to benefit the school and the kids and the community.
Chairman reports. I have a policy committee, but before I start those minutes, I'd like to back up to the education committee. I know we had a meeting since we had that committee, but I do want to point out that it was the recommendation of the education committee that we do a study on bus routes and that we take a closer look at that over a longer period of time so we have more data to make a better decision. So it's the advance, not an end-all answer. The policy committee met on 3/2. It was a very long meeting. Attending was Agatha and I, Mr. Matthews, and Mrs. Kugler. All my friends from the community were here. We spent most of the time at the meeting talking about the PSBA policy update, and they presented a very long list of questions and a discovery process where we have to provide a lot of information back to PSBA to help them review and update our policies. So I think that's going to be a good process with a great outcome. We also talked about senior citizens like me being able to get discounts in the events, the football games, the basketball games. We talked about school volunteers being reimbursed for their child abuse clearances with the new Act 153 and 168 laws. There's a pretty broad-reaching background check policy. So all of our volunteers are going to have to get those, and they're a little expensive. We think they're about $50 a check. So we talked about and recommended that we reimburse the volunteers for those background checks. And we talked about the policy for parents to come in and have lunch with students in the schools and making sure we communicate what that policy is and how the behavior is supposed to be related to parents coming in and having lunch with children. So we can continue that privilege. I think that's about it.
Okay. Thank you. Is there any other chair reports? Any other directors have comments?
I would just like to say again that I really think that we need to look at our aides. I thought we were going to do some kind of study, whether they're special ed aides or regular aides. I still think we need to look at that.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Matt.
I just started this point. September started in October, and one of the things that I understand is that the current budget includes $10,000 that was supposed to go to improvements for the playground, and none of that money got spent during good weather. So we still have $10,000 in the account right now. What are our plans? I would like a report at the next board meeting to say what are our plans for the use of that $10,000, and that probably should help from the maintenance department. Or maybe
earmarked for the playground.
it is earmarked for the playground, but I want, we just found out that the parents raised $10,000 for the playground. They're asking us to put in matching funds. And we had already budgeted money, but nothing got done.
The PTO has more than that.
Okay. But my point is that before I got here, the point that we, meaning the board, had budgeted some money to make some improvements, but that money never got spent. For whatever reason, it didn't get And,
It's not enough for a playground.
well, it's not enough for a playground, but it is enough to make things safer. In some of it safe. So my point is that I think that the next meeting, it would be nice if we had a report as to what are the plans, the immediate plans for the playground, and the long-run plans for the playground. So that we can provide a little more information.
Actually, that was my next one.
Very good. Thank you.
But I'm gonna have to say one thing. This gentleman back here had a lot to say. It seemed to be very knowledgeable. I think maybe some people on the board of comments. I don't know him at all. So, I don't even know it, but he sounded like he knew what he was talking about. Why can't we just look out there? You know what I'm saying? Is that wrong? Okay. Okay, good. We're gonna do that. For a second, we can do it in our city.
There's no wrong talking to anybody.
There you go. Okay, good.
Actually, I have a couple comments. Lonnie, in answer to the question on the education committee about the cards for senior citizens, evidently there's such a thing as a gold card out there. Some people know about it, some people don't. There's nothing in policy about it, there's nothing in administrative guidelines, I can't find anything about it except people's memory who predated me and said, oh yeah, I remember when we still give them out, I think. And I said, well, what were they for? They said, well, they were a discounted rate for senior citizens, and their memory was it was for everything.
Except the musical ones, I think mine was.
Okay, well, it actually it's funny because the person who was telling me about it said, my dad still has one, I'll get his card and read and see what it says, because she said, I don't know what it says anymore. So that may be, so I know there's a card out there, I don't know anymore, but she's telling me now it doesn't include music.
It's actually a great card. I believe it's free, you have to go to the high school office.
Yeah, supposedly, well, some people evidently, they said you had to go to the administration office to get it. Some people said, no, I didn't know where you went to get it. So it was like I talked to different people and it seems like over the years it's kind of gotten lost in translation. So that's one of the things that the policy committee needs to probably look at is that's something we really want to continue and get it.
When you go to the games or you go to the play, there is a senior citizen discount to go.
Okay.
So if you go to those things,
I don't know.
I
don't know what
and that's
it is.
And we have honored the card. I've seen that card come out and we've honored it.
I wish I wasn't there.
For a discount.
So maybe that's something the policy committee wants to look at, putting in policy considerations. So it's not when some people remember.
You may want to check with the athletic director and athletic department because I think they sell them. When they sell season tickets, you can get a ticket as a parent to be a season ticket. And I think there's a green one for parents and I think there's a gold one for, so it might be the athletic department, I think we might need to check.
Thank you. I'll do that. Heather, in answer to your question about graduation,
yes.
Right now we are June the 4th. We have 9 days to make up. It is what it is. That takes us to the following Friday. I'm sorry, Mr. Ford. I know that does not make you
You say right now, that's because you think they're,
Because you know what? I love to predict the weather
But barring
in the morning,
days.
but I'm not too good right moment about it. So as long as we don't have any other weather, we're June the 4th.
Okay.
It will be everything in my power to keep us into that week. So even if we have a day or two, there are some options that I can pull out of the hat that we can keep it to June the 4th as long as we don't go past 2 days. So right now, that's where we are.
I just want to remind us that we voted on the calendar last time and we only have 3 days built in for next year.
Like end of the year.
No, 3 within the school year, then you're gonna add 2 instead of the end. Well, you're gonna add all of them at the end, so I mean, it really has 3 days built in. Yeah.
It always happens.
Well,
What's Friday?
Friday.
Sorry,
Right on Friday night.
I don't know why I had to put my head. Where's that Friday? Sorry. I have now been told by the other superintendents in Adams County, that evidently last year, all the superintendents in Adams County agreed that they would raise the sub rate for next year to $95. Right? So, and well, as far as, that was an agreement among the county, that was not an agreement among the board now, but that was an agreement among the county. You say about you don't have any just the pages of no, people they've tried to call. The advantage of switching teachers is we do increase our pool of subs because we can actually now pull from anybody who's a source for teacher subs. So that does increase our pool rate of people that we can actually access.
However, if we don't raise that daily
rate, we will not be the people they choose to come to. That's correct. I know somebody said something to me about the ASOP system. Well, just so you understand, Source for Teacher uses the ASOP system. ASOP does nothing more than is what you log into saying, I need a sub, and they log in and say, oh, I want to be in for Mr. Hatter today. So I'm going to log in and say that's what I'm going to do. And then when they actually come into a building, there's a swipe pad, for lack of a better word, that the sub swipes that guarantees that, you know, when I got here, I didn't choose to change who I was going to sub for because I found out somebody else was not. Yeah. I think this is for when I got here and when I left, so that there's nobody cutting out before the end of the day.
If we just raise the daily rate, wouldn't that already automatically increase our pool without having to pull out?
No, we don't want.
You don't think that people are not subbing here because we pay less than the other?
The majority of the subs on our sub list are just pretty much our subs. They, you know, this is the area they sub in.
But my
But now they're getting
subs from a
higher.
different county because they pay more. She lives right next door to me. So if we paid more, don't you think we would have a larger pool to begin with just in that? Than having to outsource?
When it comes to people, you generally get what you pay for. I mean, when it comes to employees, you get what you pay for. People follow the money. I think she's right. I think if we have, if we're only paying $90 a day, the Frederick County is paying $120. They're going to go to Frederick County. They're going to go to Amazon. We're not. We need to have the event.
I was a teacher for 9 years, and when my daughter was born, she's 6, when she was born, I wanted to be with her 24/7. So I let my certification lapse. I cannot sub here because you will not hire somebody whose certification is lapsed. So, and I know that there's other places around the area that you can sub for, even if your certification lapsed. I'm not the only one. I know there's others out there that limited.
I want to thank Mrs. Van Meter publicly. The Revised Club didn't have a kit, and out of her own pocket, she provided that to them so that they can. And finally, Mr. Hessel, when you talked about just relying on a computer program for transportation, actually at the last meeting, Mr. Dickon, who used to be our transportation person when I got here, and actually I remember at the time the business manager pushed the computerized version, and he wouldn't hear of it because he felt he knew how fast the bus could go on a road, has offered to come in and help us flatten the roads, and Mrs. Club is more than interested in having to come in and do that. So just so you are aware, we are going to reach out to the expertise, and he does know the very good.
Okay. Carolyn, can you answer any of Claire's questions on the ban? Possibly.
I think we answered some in terms of whether it's what's going to happen next year, and I think there's a lot of things that could potentially swing it one way or the other. As far as the belts and the booster seats, I really need to look into that, and I'll look into that first thing in the morning. And visibility, I haven't heard that thing about Thursday. And I didn't really, I'm not looking at it from that perspective. I mean, but
well, and to be honest,
the trip this week.
until I saw it on the agenda, I never had thought this far, the band situation that far through. So it just kind of came to me and I was like, oh my goodness, well, that's a van, it's not a school bus, you're not gonna see it coming over that hill. So I understand that. The only thing, if you can give whatever notice, if you have any idea, because it also has potential. And obviously it's great for the children, but like I may have to change my work hours depending on how much the bus time changes. So.
And we'll get that out. I think there's 9 students that are specifically just going to one area. Because no matter how we slice it and put them on different buses, it was still going to be a long ride simply because they're the stands. So that's why we're using a van, because I believe, if I'm not mistaken, there's 9 kiddos. So rather than put 9 kids on a full-size bus, we're using the van. But obviously, a lot of things could change. Okay.
Thank you, Ms. Dean. There was some confusion on the last meeting regarding the sale of the property, where the proceeds of that property. And there's I have tell you about that because there's only 2 venture spots that can go.
Yeah, so I wasn't here at the last meeting, but Lee Dalton from my office came back and said that there was an issue raised about how the property sale funds might be used. There was a suggestion as to how that might be used, and it was stated publicly a certain way. And I want to clarify what is legally permitted. So Section 707 of the school code regulates how you can use the funds that come from the sale of property. And there's only 2 ways you can use those funds. For debt service, so Caroline was talking about that a little earlier, or capital expenditures. So those are the limits. So when a property is sold, that's where the funding goes, and then expenditures are made from those accounts.
Okay, and one final comment, and someone that I don't remember who brought up about personal use of emails. We have a huge problem here at the district with email. And I know over Christmas it was down, 4 days, and we have had to use personal email. There's many times district email has been down. Gary does the best he can, but there's been times we've not been able to access the email. That's just the facts. So
everybody should be copied on it.
yeah, explain well in 500. That's I'm not gonna go there. It's whatever email options we had at the time. That's what we said to. Okay. Good excuse.
It does not excuse
All right,
you
now
from
we're
following
going to go
the
on
sunshine
to
law.
the consent agenda. Is there any items to pull? We have a motion. Second. Okay, we can roll call. There's Pam and Mark.
Mr. Barlow? Mr. Wickham?
Yes.
Mr. Carr?
Yes.
Mrs. Van Meter? Mrs. Piscato?
Yes.
Mrs. Mikesel?
Yes.
Mr. Matthews?
Yes.
Mr. LaFever?
Yes.
Mr. Hatter?
Yes. Okay. And yep, other action items. The LIU general operating budget. We have a motion to approve the 2015-16 LIU general operating budget. We have a second. Okay, roll call.
Mr. Barlow?
Yes.
Mr. Carr?
Yes.
Mrs. Piscato?
Yes.
Mr. LaFever?
Yes.
Mr. Matthews?
Yes.
Mrs. Mikesel?
Yes.
Mrs. Van Meter? Mr. Wickham?
Yes.
Mr. Hatter?
Yes. We don't have any other discussion items. Our next meeting will be Monday, March 23rd. I do want to read there's some donations we received, $40.62 from Ms. Nora Cully from Wells Fargo Community Support. Matching donation of $87.99 from Wells Fargo Educational Matching Gift Program. And of course, we did receive the books from Mr. Dean last meeting, which we very much appreciate. And do I have a motion for Mr. Barlow and Ms. Van Meter? I guess all those are aye. Aye. And we are adjourned. Thank you.
Very good.
Oswald.